Hi, everyone. Welcome to Adobe Live. My name is Anna McNaught, and I will be your host today. And happy Earth Day to those of you that are here live with us. It's an exciting day. We are here with my husband, James Bonanno, and he is going to be going through some Premiere and After Effects, and it's going to be an awesome day. So we have a bunch of people joining us in the chat. Hello, Voodoo Val. Hello, Wade. Hello, Steve and Ted and Paco. Welcome back, everyone. I know some of you were here yesterday with us, so thank you for being here. And James, do you want to say hi and intro yourself?
Well, I was waiting for that beautiful intro per usual. And one thing I just have to point out, like that, the intro to these streams kind of just blows my mind every time. I was watching that through and just packed with creativity and animations and a lot of what we're going to be going over today. So I was just sort of admiring the work that's been put into all of the assets just to make streams like this possible. That being said, yes, happy Earth Day, everybody, and welcome back to everyone on the stream. It sounds like we have a lot of familiar faces from yesterday, and for those that are new to the stream today, welcome. And we're going to be discussing a lot today. I am super excited about what we're talking about, and yeah, I'm really, really excited to have you guys here on day 2, to have my wife hosting, as that's just an awesome thing to do. And yeah, I think we can get into it whenever you want.
Yeah, so before we dive into things, just a couple housekeeping things. If any of you missed the latest set of Illustrator Creative Challenges, be sure to go back and watch those replays with Julia. They're every weekday at 11:30 Pacific Standard Time. If any of you are watching over on YouTube, come over to behance.net/Adobe Live and chat with us. You can ask James questions as he's working, and I'll be reading some off to you guys, or to James. And yeah, so we'll just be having fun and getting to know each other and having a good time. So James, let's dive right in.
Oh, let's do it. First off, I'm super excited because yesterday was a learning lesson for me in a lot of ways, dealing with some of the Mogurts, which we are going to dive into today. But yeah, keep that chat rolling, guys. Keep questions coming in. I want this to be a collaborative editing space for the next 2 hours. We have a lot that I want to discuss, and I want to make sure that everyone on the stream is contributing. And if there's insights you have, then I am more than happy to implement them here on the stream. So we kind of ran out of some time yesterday. So I think the first thing that I'm going to do, for those that were on the stream yesterday, where we're at in this part of the process, but just a quick little recap. Yesterday, we really went over using templates inside of Premiere Pro, using Mogurt templates, and how easy, for the most part, it is to swap media out and to replace different text, different font, different colors. And yesterday we created something that I'm pretty proud of. I think is a really cool little intro for Leave the Map for our YouTube videos. So it was a bit of a live editing experience. So we finished that yesterday. I rendered it out just so we're not sitting here watching my computer explode, and we can watch that back. And the first thing that I want to hop into today is just really quickly showing you guys how to enable that remix in Adobe Audition, so that we can take a music track here and fit it perfectly inside of the parameters of those 12 seconds we have to work with, and then export this out as our little promo, show you guys how to actually export that for different platforms and social media platforms. And then we will be hopping into After Effects for the remainder of the stream today. And I'm going to show you guys how to actually create a custom Mogurt, which I've created one already as a sample, and we're going to do a little bit of live After Effects editing and show you how easy it is to then save that and re-edit everything in Premiere once it's finished. So lots of really exciting stuff. Cool. So let's just play this back real quick. It's rendered. We can fully see how everything looks. I'm going to say it's good to go, but let's just play it for the audience. Awesome. So I think it's looking really, really good. There's probably some tweaking that I might do if I really wanted to nitpick this, but I think for the most part, I'm feeling really happy with this. And like we mentioned yesterday, sourcing music, I like to source my music from Epidemic Sound. As a recap, I guess you can now go into the audio panel here, and Epidemic and Adobe Stock are partnered, which was news to me yesterday. And you can actually source your music right here by where did we have this? By filters and clicking Epidemic sound here, and everything that's on Epidemic would actually populate right here in Adobe, which is an amazing feature in itself. For this case, we already pulled this clip. So what I want to show you guys is, rather than cutting this audio down and then trying to kind of hodgepodge it together, I've already opened Audition, but for the sake of showing you guys, if you want to do this, you would right click your audio track, edit clip in Adobe Audition. Okay, and the clip is already in here, so we shouldn't have any problems of having it open. So here we go. So this is Adobe Audition. For those that are new to using it, this is kind of what the interface looks like. I am no expert in Audition, so I'm not even going to try to start talking about it, but I just wanted to show this one feature and how powerful it is. So once that clip is extracted and it's into Audition, you're going to go up here to multi-track. You're going to go to, you're going to go to File, not multi-track, and go New Multi-Track Session. And what this is going to do is just create basically a blank composition for you to drag that audio file into your session. We'll just title it Untitled Session, because who doesn't like an untitled name? Don't worry about that. It's not really going to go anywhere. And then we're going to actually take this extracted audio version, and you can see that it's just an audio file, left and right channels, and we're going to drag it right here into the timeline. Okay. So now if we were to play this back, you can see that it's the exact same track that we just had in Premiere Pro. And this is great, but what we want is we want to enable this remix feature so that we can tell Audition that this track needs to be that 10-second mark so that it fits perfectly within our promo. So along the right-hand side of your Audition window, if you don't see it, just make sure you're in the properties panel here. And if I don't toil that down, you're going to see where it says remix. I'll toil that and say enable remix. And essentially what this is doing is Adobe's just processing the entire track and getting all that information for you. So it should only take a couple seconds. Here we go. Now that that's been enabled, you'll notice that there's a target duration right below it. And right now it says that the length of the song is 3 minutes, 14 seconds, and 44 milliseconds or whatever. We want to change this to say 12 seconds so that Audition does its work for us and we don't have to actually manually go and cut it. So I'm going to come in here and say 0. We're going to name this 12 seconds and 0, 0. Now I'm going to press enter. And now I've magically cut this entire track into a 12-second sequence. So if I play this back, you'll see all the way at the end here, it has done all of the looping for us. So we don't even have to cut anything manually. And that's an amazing feature. It saves you a ton of time. And now we're almost done. So the final piece to actually get this track back into Premiere is to go File, Export, Export to Adobe Premiere Pro. Okay, and it's going to give you an option here. We're just going to title this Looped Track. Okay, export each track as a stem. We're just going to say, keep that checked. And it's already checked that it's going to open Adobe Premiere Pro. Okay, so we're going to go export. Just say overwrite. Okay, and now what's going to happen, we're going to copy this to a new audio track so that it actually gets layered right underneath the track we already have so that it doesn't mess up your work if you have to go in and re-edit the longer music track. We press OK. Now, when we scroll down our timeline, there it is. This is our track right here. We're going to just actually remove this or move it down the timeline. We're going to zoom in here and I'm going to move this track up here so that we can actually see it. Let me make this a little bit smaller. And so this might be a little long. You can see that the ends of this cut off right here, but that's sort of what we wanted. So now I'm going to adjust the volume a little bit, just bring it down to maybe 8 dB, and let's play this back, and this track will fit exactly the time that we want. Perfect.
Wow.
So it's really, really cool. That took what, 5 minutes maybe to do the entire thing. I think I might, if I had a little bit more time, I might go in and tweak the timing just a little bit. But to me, this seems perfect for what we're showing you guys here today. And it's really an amazing feature. I think I saw this at Adobe Max a couple of years ago and it blew my mind then, and it still blows my mind now. So what we're going to do here is we're just going to move this to our end point. We want our out point to be right at the end of this music. And because ideally if this is going before a video or in a promo, we want to leave a little space with this track. Most of the time I would just copy this whole piece here and use it in another project. But let's say we just wanted to export this as a standalone. We're going to go up here to File, Export, Media, or Command M as a good shortcut. And a real quick run through for those that are new to sort of the export window inside of Premiere. You just want to make sure that your audio and your video are both checked. If you're just exporting audio, you can, take the check off of video. You have all these different presets. For this case, I want to have this be just an MP4 file. So it's still high quality, but the size of the file isn't huge. So H.264 is perfect for that. We're going to then name it something for our output. And for the case of today, we're just going to put this in Clips for Adobe Live. We're just going to call this promo test. I'm usually way more organized, but you get it. And then we're going to scroll down here and you can see all of your video settings. So your video settings right now are matching the source. So it's 1920 by 1080. You can go down even further and you can continue to tweak this. Your bit rate is basically the file size and just, the resolution of the file. So if I wanted to change this to maybe 30, you'll notice that now our file size got bigger, but I'll just leave it at 10. And that's pretty much it, guys. That's the basic export property inside of Premiere Pro. You can export using Media Encoder if you wanted to, batch export. Let's say you created 5 different promos and you wanted to batch export them. To do that, you would press this Q button rather than export, and then it would open up in Media Encoder and you'd be given the exact same parameters, but you'd be able to batch export them. So you could press play, export like 5 or 6 videos, go grab a cup of coffee and come back. So I'm not going to export it just for the sake of time today, because there are a lot of other things I'd like to discuss, but this is kind of where we're at with our export. And it's as easy as pressing export, waiting a couple minutes, and we have this really stunning promo that we did all right here with Mogert's in Premiere.
Love it. So cool.
All right. Any questions so far?
Looks like people are just really digging it. They're really liking what you're doing. Very impressed by the sound design.
Cool.
If anyone has any questions, you know what to do. Feel free to ask away, and I'll stop James when he's at a good point.
Cool. I'm so happy with this. I think the only thing I might change is maybe this step out of your comfort zone clip seems a little weird, but we can always go back and change that in the future. And now we know how easy it is to go into our graphics window and change all of those parameters right here in our global controls and our media controls.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. So we are going to come back to Premiere, ideally at the end of the stream. So for those that are eager to learn Premiere, don't worry, your time will come, but we are going to be moving over into After Effects, which I'm really excited about. And that does take a little bit more time. I really wanted to give you guys some time to walk you through some of the basic animations and how to actually create your own motion graphic from scratch in After Effects and do the exact same process that we've been doing here yesterday and today.
Ted has a question for you. Could remix be used to extend a soundtrack to fit a time frame also?
Yep.
Sorry, I read that kind of weird, but yeah, I think you got it.
Totally. Yeah. I actually use it more for that than I do for shortening the track. That's a great question, Ted. If you have I've used it a lot for long interviews or specifically tutorials. Let's say you're posting a 15-minute tutorial on YouTube. The standard that you used to have to use before Remix was going in there and actually cutting the track up like 15 times. And you really were pulling your hair out. So you can tell Remix, hey, this is 15 minutes long. And then you'll actually see inside of Audition, if we pull this up here and I zoomed in, you'll see where they cut it. So there's little like squigglies right here. Mm-hmm. And that's how Adobe's, AI system just reads the track and they find the best places that seem the most seamless. So yeah, great question, Ted.
Okay. Yeah. Now I'm remembering seeing this at Adobe Max too. And I remember you were like super impressed. And I was like, how does that even work?
Well, it was at the time I was working for Verizon and I was doing a lot of corporate videos. So all day long I was doing interviews or, tutorials that had really long tracks, and I would have to literally go in and cut them all. And so it just took my life and made it so much easier just with one piece of technology. So for those on the stream, hopefully that helps you guys to do the same in your work. All right, so perfect, 15 minutes, and now we're into After Effects, which I know is going to take a little bit longer, and I'm going to try my best to just explain kind of what I did here. But really what we're going to be doing for the next part of the stream is showing you guys how I created a very, simple but dynamic little animation that I would use as maybe like a title card in between videos, or, a number of things, a lower third or something like that, and create maybe like a 5 to 6 second animation that you can customize in After Effects. It does take a little bit longer, but what you can now do is you can create that motion graphic with media replacement in After Effects, and then you can export that to Premiere so that, let's say we take these clips and we want to replace them down the line, I don't have to come back into Premiere and take the clip away and swap it with something else. I can do that very easily in Premiere. I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so let me just play what I'm going to be showing you guys today. So this is just something that I created as kind of a good demo on today's stream. Oops. So very, very kind of simple, but dynamic. So cool. There's really a lot of interesting things going on, and it didn't take me all that long to create. And so I think what I really want to get across for those that are new to After Effects or not as proficient is, if you're brand new to it, this might seem a little intermediate, but really if you know what you're doing in here, you can create something like this with very few steps, and then templatize it so that you can then go back and, if you don't want to use After Effects, recreate everything in Premiere. So what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you guys how I created this. We're then going to, at the final stage, we're going to export this as another motion graphic, and then we're going to show how we can swap all of those properties the same way we did in Premiere using this same template. So I'm already in After Effects. I'm going to just start from scratch here, and I'm going to do a little bit of live editing, so don't judge me. Ted, don't judge me for my faults here. So we're going to go Command N, and that pulls up our composition settings, similar to Premiere. So same sort of settings. And we're just going to stick to a 1920 by 1080 ratio. We're going to name this title card for live. 6 seconds is the duration that I have it set at. I just feel like that's a good length of time for a little title card. This can be changed once you actually set it. I'll show you guys how to do that. Resolution you can change as well, and we're going to press OK. Okay, and now we have a new composition, and all of our beautiful work has gone bye-bye right there. Okay, so right here is our new comp, and this is our previous comp. So the way that I want to start this is I want to put some footage in here to start animating some properties, because the idea with this template is that I have maybe 3 clips that I can swap out, and those clips all animate differently, but in a similar way. So what I'm going to do is I've already put all these assets in these folders. I am kind of a stickler when it comes to organization. If you guys were on the stream last month, I talked about that in Premiere, and After Effects can get a little bit unruly the more layers you put. So I like to just keep everything in comp folders, pre-comps when you do start pre-comping a lot, and then an assets folder. And then the more layers you begin to add, the more folders you'd probably want. So for this, I'm just going to go to my assets folder, and I'm going to drag all 3 of those clips that you guys saw in this video onto my timeline. Okay, so I'm going to take the campfire, drag it down here. I'm going to take this cloudy time lapse, which is really cool. I'm going to drag that down as well. And then I'm going to take this, let's take this mountain valley drone shot, and we're going to drag this down here as well. Okay, and these clips are all 4K clips, so they're a little zoomed in. So to change that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight all these clips, press S on my keyboard to bring up the scale properties. And I'm going to press 50 for 50%. So they're all scaled now to 50. And if I hide these, you can see now all the clips are on top of each other. So that's just a quick way to sort of globally change all the scale really quickly. So what I'm going to do here is I want to create a bit of an animation, a bit of a position. So I want our clips to start off the screen and then just kind of animate it in a really basic position. So what we're going to do first is let's go here. What did I do on the left? let's start with our time lapse. So I'm going to move this to the top. Okay. And I'm going to press P on my keyboard. P brings up your position properties. And for those that are brand new to keyframing or After Effects, here is your stopwatch. This essentially sets your keyframe. So I'm going to press that to set it. Actually, let's go down a couple frames here. So I'm going to go Shift, Command, and right on my keyboard to go 30 frames. And I'm going to set a keyframe here because that's where I want that final position to be. And I'm actually going to move it over a little bit because I know I want, when I do eventually mask this, I want to make sure that like this part of my mountains is on the left side of the frame. Okay. And then I'm going to go Command Shift left arrow back, and that'll set a keyframe 30 frames in the other direction. And what I'm going to do here is hold Shift and drag this down. Okay. And this is going to create a very simple just position animation. Okay. So really simple here. I'm going to zoom out a little bit. For some reason, this actually looks like it is a little larger than I'd like, but that's okay. Okay. So you can hide these other layers as well. So if you wanted to just be working on one layer, you can either hide them, or there's this little dot here in the middle. If I press that, that just solos that one individual track. We'll do that for now. Okay, so super simple. It doesn't look great at all. It looks like it was done in like, I don't know, iMovie or something. Okay, but we're gonna change that. So now what I wanna do is I wanna do another position animation, the same length, but on my next clip. And so I'm gonna solo this, okay? And like you guys saw in this video, it's really dynamic when you have different things moving at different angles from different directions. So we have a video coming in from the bottom and from the top and then the bottom again. And it just makes your eye, it creates a lot more visuals to look at. So we're going to actually take this clip. We're going to do the same thing. So P on our keyboard. Okay, we're going to go 3 frames, 1, 2, 3, or sorry, 30 frames. Set our stopwatch. That's where our final position is going to be. And then we're going to do the same thing back here. And rather than dragging it down, we're going to drag it up. So hold Shift, and you can see, you'll know your keyframe's working when you see these lines, because that's your animation in sort of visual form. If you don't see that, it's probably because your keyframe isn't turned on. All right. So now we can see, ooh, oh baby, we got campfire moving. Okay. Still does not look great, but we're going to change that. All right, so now we got to make our animation for the third piece of this, which is our next clip, okay? And we're going to solo that. And I know I want this to be on the right side of my frame, so the action happens, right in here. So I'm going to just drag this over a little bit because, I've already done this. I know what I'm looking for. I want this action to be what I'm seeing, right? That looks the coolest. And if I, mask this out, then you're not really seeing the right action, okay? So now we're going to copy these. We're going to copy these keyframes because they're the same position keyframes from the first clip. Oops, actually, scrap that. Let's do this instead because our position has changed. So we're going to do the same thing, add a keyframe. Okay, three frames back, and we're going to drag this down. Okay, so now if I was going to play this all back, you probably would see a bunch of, you'd probably see a bit of a mess, and it's really easy to change that. And we're going to show you how to do that right now. But if I play this back, you can see everything's animating, but it's coming in kind of slow. They're all layered on top of each other. Nothing really looks like it's blended. There's a lot that needs to happen, but not a whole lot of steps to get there. Okay. So the first thing that we want to do is, this is a really important part of animating in After Effects and in Premiere, is taking these keyframes and creating what's known as easy ease, or creating these nice beziers that create a more natural looking animation. Because right now everything is just coming in from one point to another, and there's no smoothness that's going on between those two properties. So to change that, we're going to highlight our keyframes. Everyone has different shortcuts. I set a shortcut for Command E. And if I highlight that, you'll notice that now After Effects has taken that little diamond and it's turned it to an hourglass. And that just means that now you have these properties that are much easier and smoother. So if I soloed this, now when I play it back, it already looks a lot better just by doing nothing else. It looks smoother. It looks like it fades in a little bit better than even this clip does. Right? Like that looks slow. And and it's not intentional. So what we're going to do is we're going to do that to all these properties, Command E. I think on most Macs it's F9 for some reason. Mine wasn't that way. So I reset those keyboard shortcuts. And now what we're going to do so that we can see them all kind of offsetting each other, we're going to actually just go 10 frames ahead. So we're going to go 10 frames, and then we're going to drag this to our campfire. We're going to go another 10 frames, and now we're going to drag our mountains so that now everything staggers and doesn't come in all at once. Okay, but there's still a huge problem. There's still this problem of all we can really see is this cloudy, our clouds here, and we see nothing else. And that's not what we're looking for, right? We want to make sure that we can actually see what we want. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to actually start to create a mask around each of these layers so that we set that mask exactly where we want that clip to be. All right, and to give yourself some reference point and parameters, I'm going to zoom in here so you guys can see the whole canvas. And we're going to click this button right down here, proportional grid. And if anyone in the chat knows of another way here, like a direct center point, which I know there is inside of the align tool, please leave it in the chat. But this is just what I've been using recently. All right, and then let me hide this for a sec. Sorry, guys. Okay, and up here I have snapping turned on, so that'll be helpful when we're trying to snap things to the different properties. Okay, so the first thing what we want to do is we want to actually mask this clip here. We want everything to be in thirds. We want this whole thing to appear like it was here, right? So we've essentially created those animations already. We just want to make sure that we mask them properly. Okay, so we're going to go back to our clip here. And the first thing we want to do is mask our clouds. Okay, so to do that, make sure that you're actually clicked on your layer. If you were clicked off of your layer and you went up here to the shape property, the rectangle tool, and I double click this, you'll notice that a shape layer is actually added onto your timeline. And that's not what we want. Right now, we want the mask to actually be added to the properties. So I need to make sure that when I do click this rectangle, I'm on my property. So when I double click that, now you'll see that a mask was added instead of a shape layer above it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this mask and I'm going to adjust it so that, so that I can just move this to, let's say, about here. And again, this is me kind of eyeballing it because I couldn't figure out where the actual like splitting it into 3 was. I'm sure someone in the chat knows that, and I am open to that suggestion. And what I want to also do is I just want to trim the end of this part of the mask off. So I'm just going to zoom out here a little bit. I'm going to use H on my keyboard. That lets me move around when I hold it down, that lets me move around my canvas here. I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm just going to move this mask so that now we have a mask that's set around the clip we want. So when it comes in, boom. And if we were to turn this mask off or just delete it, that's all we've done. We've just added one mask. We haven't moved the mask. We haven't inverted it or animated it. It's just a simple, here's your mask, and let's just create what we want out of that mask, which is a really neat technique.
Is there a reason for trimming the mask on the left-hand side if it's kind of out of the frame anyways?
That's a great question. The only reason I trim that, and we're going to get to that when I bring it back into Premiere, is if you wanted to scale the entire piece up or down globally, which we will, you can do. And so you don't have to necessarily do that because everything inside of this window is all you're going to see. But if you start to scale it up and down, you will see the edges of that mask. So it's always good just to have a clean mask so you don't have to deal with it later. But that's a really good question.
Okay. I'm slowly starting to learn After Effects. James has been teaching me. So next time I'll be able to teach you guys some things too. Maybe.
It's awesome. I was like, you're going to learn a lot today.
I know. It's so crazy because it's still like so over my head. I look at it and I'm like, wait, what did you do there? Wait, rewind.
Yeah. And this is, like I said, this is pretty, it is simple stuff, but it does take a while to get to this point and to fully understand the program. There's a lot going on. And keyframing in itself can be a bit of a daunting task. So I just wanted to try to create something that does look really nice for you guys to see, that you don't have to be a total expert in After Effects to do this. And hopefully if you're following along on the stream, you can do the same. Okay, so we're just gonna go on down the line and just put 2 masks on these other 2 clips. So same exact thing. We're going to make sure we're clicked here on the campfire, go up here and double click your rectangle tool. Okay, and now we've added a mask. And you can add multiple masks. You don't have to just add one, but in this case, we only need the one. So what we're going to do is I'm going to hold Shift Command and click the sides here. And this is going to basically allow me to drag the entire mask over, instead of having to adjust each individual part. Okay, so we're going to drag that mask right up to the corner here. And then like we did last time, I'm going to turn my proportional grid back on, and I'm going to just take these 2 points at the end of my mask, hold Shift. Oops, sometimes it's a little finicky. And I'm going to drag this back. And that looks pretty good to me. Okay, so let's solo that so we can just see that this now plays by itself. I'm going to toggle this off so I can see what I'm working with here. Fit this to our screen, and cool. Now that has now animated the way we want. And what's nice about doing it this way, like there's a million ways to do this, is I like to create the animations first and then add the mask as a global adjustment, because then you're not worrying about going in and adjusting, properties for a much smaller piece of video. So you can add those effects before, add all of your animations, and then go ahead and mask out your layer. Okay. And let's just do that for the bottom here. Same exact thing. This one's already looking pretty good, because if you play them all together now, they're pretty lined up, but we still do want to make sure we're masking out everything that's behind that clip. So we will do this here. We're going to do the same thing, double click the rectangle, and now we've added another mask here. Shift Command, hold our guy, scooch right over. I think we're somewhere over here. Let's just turn our other layers on. Zoom in so we can see kind of where this mask falls off.
You could use that grid too to like line everything up perfectly.
You know,
it's like a guide, I guess, right?
Definitely. Yeah. I think with this one, because there's 3 clips and there's only 8 sections, I was trying to do a little math on the fly, and probably didn't do a very good job. But yes, you can definitely do that. And that's why you would use a grid like this, to make sure that you have accurate lines. Okay, so very quickly, we have now created this really cool little, we're going to turn this grid off. Oops, zoom in again here to fit the screen. And now we have boop, boop. Oops, sorry. These were soloed. So we have boop, boop, and boop. There's some more music for you guys.
Boop, boop.
Boop, boop, and boop. Awesome. So that to me looks really cool. I like the way these look, because you have some darker colors and this fire in the middle, which is really nice contrast. And you have this beautiful blue sky and time lapse and some other mountains on the right. So it's a really interesting way for the 3 of them to work together. Okay, so that's part 1 here. How are we doing on questions at this point? Do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's everyone's feeling good.
Okay, so I'm going to show you guys, if you take these keyframes. So I do like the way these are animating. I think they're coming in really nicely. But if you wanted to take it one step further and adjust the speed of how fast it comes in and how slow it fades out, what you would do is you would highlight these keyframes, and there's a little icon here if you hover over it called Graph Editor. I'm going to click the Graph Editor, and don't worry, don't be intimidated. This is pretty simple here. So we're going to look at this line. And so essentially what this is doing is it's telling us that this clip is starting at 0, velocity speed, and it's ramping up all the way to the top. And then eventually it's slowing down before it stops. And so it's just a visual representation of what that animation looks like. So if I click this, you'll notice that I have these 2 handles down here, these 2 properties. And what's really cool about the speed editor is if I drag one of these properties, I can adjust how fast it animates in or how fast it animates out. And so if I drag this, you'll see that it's now changing the influence, which is basically your speed here. And it's going to come in really, really fast and then, dip out even faster. So let's see how that looks. Okay, that's looking kind of cool. Or let's just, for the sake of how extreme we can get, we're going to take this to 100. So it starts out really slow and then a quick ramp, and then it dies at the end. So let's play that back. Ooh, that's kind of sweet. That's a little much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this handle on my right, and I'm going to actually kind of create a little peak in the middle here. And I'm going to try to get to about 70. And there's another way to do this more specifically, but I like doing it this way. So we're going to click and play, and you can see that the difference in just changing those two properties really make this look like an animation. And from where we started with nothing to now, that's a heck of a lot better. Hell, you like that? Like the little slip up? All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to do the exact same thing to these other two, and then we're going to copy our keyframes to the end of our timeline so that we can have that same animation, but in reverse. Okay. So let's highlight these keyframes, go back into our graph editor. We're going to do the same thing. So pull this and pull this, and let's go to about 70, play that back. Boom. That looks really cool. Same thing here. And these are really, really powerful. This is a really powerful part of After Effects, this graph editor. I use it all the time on any animation. Anyone who's knowledgeable about animating way more than me, like this is where they live essentially. Okay, awesome. So now we have three really cool animations coming in with three different clips. Sweet. So we're going to click out of the graph editor. And what I want to do is I want to have these stagger out, but in reverse. And so I don't want to have to recreate this all. I don't want to have to like go frame by frame and do exactly what I just did. And so the beauty of copy and paste in After Effects is nice, but you have to know how to reverse the clips. So what we would do is we're going to take the first clip that came in, and that's going to be the first clip that will animate out. So we're going to take our keyframes, Command C for copy and paste. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make sure I'm clicked on my layer, Command paste. And now I have those two keyframes pasted at the end of my timeline. But what you'll notice is because I copied them, it just goes right out. And that's not what I want. I want to make sure that these keyframes are reversed so that the clip animates out the same way that it animated in. And so what I'm going to do is highlight these two keyframes, right click and go to Keyframe Assistant. And I'm going to say Time Reverse Keyframes. And this is like straight up magic because all it does is just reverse those keyframes. So now I've basically just doubled the work I did here in reverse. Okay, so if I play that back, you can see boom, 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 nothing's happening. And now we have that same animation out. Okay, and so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do the same thing to these two clips, but I wanna make sure that everything is proportional to the time that I'm animating. So Shift Command and up on your arrows just goes 10 frames. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go 10 frames from this point here forward, okay? And that's where I'm going to put these next keyframes. Okay, so I'm gonna copy that. We're gonna do the exact same thing, Keyframe Assistant, Time Reverse Keyframes. And now you can see that at the same time this goes out, this now animates up. All right, and we're gonna do the exact same thing with the last here. We're gonna go Shift Command Page Up, that goes and moves your playhead 10 frames. And we're gonna copy these keyframes right here. And then we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna go Keyframe Assist or Assistant and Time Reverse Keyframes. Okay, and then just for the sake of the project, we're gonna highlight all these and we're gonna move them all the way to the end of the playhead. All right, so now here's what we have. Okay, and so we have a full animation that we can be using as a bumper or, you know, a number of things. And there's still a lot more to do, but that's sort of the base of what I wanted to show you guys of how we can get these clips in, make them look really, really cool, add a little bit of position animation, and honestly stagger these keyframes so that there is some sort of dynamic movement happening here. Okay, so Command A highlights everything, and U on your keyboard, if you're looking to get back to all the work that you just did, you just press U and that will show you all of your properties and all of the keyframes and animations that you've already done. Okay.
Yeah, that's definitely a helpful key to remember.
I use that key all the time because there's a lot. I mean, this is a simple timeline here, but you can see even here, this is what it's going to look like when we're finished. And there's a lot of layers and a lot of things on that layer. If we were to highlight everything here and press U, you can see all the different keyframe properties that exist. And we're going to go over all that here today in the stream.
That's so scary.
It only looks scary because you're learning this. So for the people at home that look at that and go, oh my God, I want to run away, I get that. But it takes time and practice. And I really wanted to try to show you guys some of the more basic elements in After Effects to still make something look really cool.
Yeah.
All right. So the next thing we want to do is we want to create a shape that actually goes on top of this, our layer here. But I think before we do that, I'd like to create a little bit of like a color overlay, because I know that we're going to add some text. We're going to add, a title, whether it's a tip title for a YouTube video or something. And I don't want the text or the shape to compete with the background too much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create a adjustment layer, and that adjustment layer will act as the layer that I put my color correction on, and I can start to create a little bit more of like a faded look. And I'm going to show you guys how to do that in a sec here. Okay, so we're going to right click in our project panel. We're going to go to New Adjustment Layer. Okay, here's our adjustment layer right here. And I'm just going to press Enter on my keyboard, and that allows me to change the name. And I'm just going to call this Color Adjustments, just so that I don't get confused. You can also label any number of these, which just helps visually. So we'll just make that yellow. That way everything's not the same color. Okay, and then we're going to go to our Effects and Presets panel, and we're just going to type Lumetri color. Okay, drag Lumetri color over here onto our color adjustments. And now up in our effects panel, same way that Lumetri color exists in Premiere, it's going to exist here in After Effects, and we're going to edit it the same way. But the only thing that I really want to change here is I want to change this. I want to add like a cool faded film look. So I'm going to go to Creative, Faded Film, and let's just crank that to like 60. Okay, so you can see, and just doing that now, because it's an adjustment layer, it has adjusted everything that's underneath it. If I moved this, it would only be adjusting what it's above. Okay, so you always want to make sure your adjustment layer is set so that everything you want adjusted is underneath. Okay, let's just kind of play around with maybe the tint here a little bit. We'll hold Shift and move this to maybe like a warmer tint in the shadows. Highlights, maybe we'll make a little bit bluer, which is kind of cool. Okay. And then let's maybe bring the exposure down just a little bit, maybe something like that. And let's bring the saturation down a hair. Okay. So obviously we don't want to bring it down too much, but let's go to like 90%. So there's still some color, 95. Okay. And that's one piece of what we want to add. The other element that I want to add on this is a little bit of like a color matte that actually lives on top of our color correction, so that the shape that we add is going to stand out even more. And so what I'm talking about here is you can sort of see it has a bit of a bluer look to it, which I really liked. So let's go to color adjustments here. And all I did here was I added a fill layer on that adjustment layer. And you can do this in a number of ways. You can either add a solid, you can just add a solid and then take the opacity down, or, the same way you would as a layer in Photoshop. But I want to just make sure everything lives on this one color adjustment so that it's just easier when we start exporting this as a motion graphic. Okay, so I'm going to go to Fill in my effects controls. We're going to go to Generate here, and you're going to see where it says Fill. Boop. Drag you boy right on there. Okay. And now, now you'll notice that this whole thing is red. We do not want that. It looks like crap. Obviously, that's not what we're looking for. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Libraries tab here. As you can see, we revisit libraries all the time. I'm constantly using the same colors. And I'm going to take a little eyedropper tool, and I'm going to take this dark blue, okay, this dark navy that I like. And we're going to just take our opacity and we're going to change that to 20%. Okay. And this was basically set as an adjustment layer, so don't worry about that. I turned that off. Okay. And you'll notice now that with that turned off, it has actually done what we wanted to do. So this was at 100%. All I really did is added a solid color, and I take the opacity down to, let's say, 20%. And that's starting to look really nice. Okay. So you take that off, you now have all of your color on one layer. So just that alone helps to separate it. And we can always go in here and adjust these things. So if I want to maybe come back in and make that faded film even more, I might go to 80%, or sorry, 80. Where did we go here? Okay. Oops. Let's see what's happening here. Oh, you know what happened? Hold on, guys. Looks like we were having a little issue with that. I'm going to try to do this a different way.
It looked good there for a second.
It did. I think the fill layer kind of out adjusted what we were working on. So for now, we're just going to stick to this. Where did I go here? Creative, adjustments, faded film. Let's just go to 50. We're going to take the highlights and we'll leave it at that for right now. Okay, so here's our Lumetri color. Here's our color layer, and that helps a ton to really separate it from what we're going to create next. Okay, so save your project, because nothing's worse than Premiere or After Effects crashing when you're already through like an entire project. Okay. True. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create a shape here. Okay, so we're not clicked on any of these layers, right? So we're going to click this shape, and I'm just going to look up here to my properties on the shape. I want to add a fill to it to make sure that, you know, we have this same shape coming in, right? So I'm going to come here, click on this for my fill layer. It's already set to that color, but if it wasn't, you guys know the drill, your eyedropper tool, and that's the color that I wanted to select, press OK. And then I don't want to stroke on this. So I'm going to click on the stroke text here and make sure that there is no stroke on that layer. I just want it to be a shape. Okay. So now I'm going to drag this out. I'm not holding shift or anything because I just want to create this cool rectangle. Okay. I'm going to place it first, and then I'm going to go up here to my selection tool. I'm going to move this around, and on the right-hand side, you'll see that there's this align tool, or the align tab. If I click that, it now allows me to center my shape vertically and horizontally. And that's exactly what I want to do. I want to make sure it's centered right in the middle of the frame. So click that and click this. Mm-hmm. And now our shape is centered exactly in the center of the frame, which is exactly what we want. Okay. Yeah. I might take this down a little bit. I'm going to move my anchor point to make sure that the anchor point is centered in this square box. Press Y on my keyboard and it snaps right to the center. And then let's just adjust this accordingly. And now we have this awesome shape that's just now floating in space. Okay. So right now it doesn't look great because it just hangs out there, and we want to make sure that this animates. We want to have this do something. Okay. So I'm going to press enter on my keyboard, name this text box shape. Okay. Maybe I'll make this a different color. Let's go with pink. Ooh. Yeah, that looks nice, right? So now we have this pink layer. It doesn't look really pink. It looks more like brown, but that's okay.
Yeah, what? That's not pink.
I know. I don't get it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to animate this shape so that once these parts of our clip kind of reach the frame, the shape is almost expanding into its own shape. And that's sort of what we did here. So if I play this back, okay, you can see that the shape kind of comes in, and I'll solo it for us so we can see what it looks like. So the shape animates up and then out. Okay. And when I first started animating in After Effects, I was kind of blown away by how you can create shapes like that with just one property, and that's the scale property. I'm going to show you guys how to do that. So if we want to have that same animation, what we're going to do is we're going to press S on our keyboard. That brings up scale. If you don't want to use keyboard shortcuts, you can just press this manually and all of your properties would appear. There's a lot of times where you want that, but in this instance, all I want is the scale property. So I'm going to press S. Okay. I'm going to solo this so I can just be animating this shape. And you'll see right now, if I move this scale, everything, the width and the height are moving together. But in order to create an animation where the height and the width are animating at different times, we'd have to click this constraint property, and we're going to check that so that now we can animate our width separately from our height, right? So that's a really cool feature, because now we can animate. Let me have this just appear horizontally and then appear vertically. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to create 3 keyframes. We're going to create one here. We're going to go, let's see, 2 frames or 20 frames, create another keyframe, and then another 20 frames. And I like to just set my keyframes first and then do the animation. To each his own. You can animate on a keyframe without having to set it. As long as this stopwatch is turned on, you're good to go. Okay, so this keyframe is set because this is where I want my animation to end. But what I want is I want to start at 0 on both properties. And then what I want to do is go to the next frame here. And I want this property, which is the height. I want this to be about 10. Okay, maybe a little less. Maybe let's go 8. And I want my width to be at 0. Oops, sorry. Other way around. 0. What am I doing here? There we go. Okay, so if I play this back, you'll see this is 0, 0. Boom, boom. Okay, so now we have, rather than the whole image animating in on itself, you're animating in, and then you're waiting a beat, and now you're animating out. And like we said before, this does not look great just on the face because everything moves slow and it doesn't really look that dynamic. And like I did before, we're going to be in this graph editor a lot. We're going to highlight these keyframes. We're going to go Command E, and we're going to easy ease them. And I'm going to go back into my graph editor tool. And now I have that same sort of Bezier, like a visual Bezier, and I'm going to animate each of these differently. So I'm going to play around with it. Let's pull the handles here. And let's say we want this to start real fast. And then on the out, we want maybe this to animate out. So let's see how that would look. Okay, not ideal. So we're going to try to play around with some things here. Whoops. And make sure you're on the right handle here. So let's see. Let's pull this. There we go. So that looks better already just as the animating in. And then we're going to want to do the same thing on the out, but I'm going to do the opposite. Awesome.
Cool.
So like that looks really cool. And
that's such a great feature.
Yeah, it's something that like I'm still daunted and like slightly terrified of it most of the time. But when you just start playing around with them, if you're new to using these, there's plenty of resources online of, people that teach tutorials on them, and you can create just this is how most animators really start creating elements of design. And it's a really powerful feature that you can have a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's our little box. So if I turn this back off, I can now see that I have something that's a lot more dynamic than what it was previously. Okay. I'm starting to really like that. All right. And so now what I want to do is I want to do the same thing I did before. I want this box to maybe animate out around here or before these clips go away. So I'm going to highlight these keyframes, Command C. Let's go down to the end here. And then we're going to right click and we're going to go keyframe assist and then time reverse. And that's going to do the exact same thing, but in reverse. Sweet. So now everything is moving. One of the things with animating, and I am in no way a glorified animator by any stretch, but the one good piece of advice I've gotten from other animators is the best kind of animations happen when there's something is always moving on the screen. Something's always happening. So you never want, unless it's intentional, at this point, there's 3 or 4 things happening at once. And then the reason this is nice is because it's supposed to be a title and you still have video and motion in the background. And then on the way out, something is always moving. Okay. So that's a good little tip.
Yeah. I guess I've failed with that because in my pieces, I animate like one thing. I'm like, oh, so I learned one thing and that works.
You're like, yes, I'm so excited. Let me just put this one thing to use.
So I made this one butterfly move.
No, hey, that's impressive in itself. It's tricky. There's a lot to it for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
You make it look easy.
Wow, thank you. It's not. All right, so let's add another shape here. So we're getting pretty close, guys. I mean, this is starting to look really nice. Like as it is now, you could really use this as a template, but we want to take it a couple steps further and really show you guys how you can turn this into a template. I think that's the most important part. So I want to make sure I don't run out of time today. All right, so we're going to look at and see what else we did here. So you can see there's this really cool little line that's happening around our text box here. And then the same thing, it goes whoop, right back out. So it's almost this like ghost line. And it just looks, it's nice. It's a cool way to frame the box, but not stay there. And I think it just adds a nice dynamic flair. So to do that, we're going to zoom in on our piece here and we're going to go back to our shape layer. So you can either right click in here and go new shape layer, or you can manually create a shape. I'm going to just create the shape around this box. And I don't want this box to have a fill. So I'm going to empty this, click the fill, boom, you're no longer full. And then stroke, let's set this to maybe 10. And I want that stroke to be white. Okay. So now when I start to draw, you can see that there's no fill and I have a nice white border around this box. Okay. So right now, nothing's happening with that border. We haven't animated it and it just looks like a plain white border. Okay. I'm going to name this. We're going to call this text outline. And I'm going to label this the same as our text box so that I know that they're an item, they're together. So when we do start pre-composing these, or if we had to, I would know where those things live. Okay. So the cool thing about shape layers, and this for people that are proficient in After Effects, this isn't new. For those that are brand new, this will be like, what the heck are you talking about? But a shape layer is really powerful in all, vector situations in Illustrator and Photoshop. But in After Effects, what's nice is you have all these vector properties just built into that shape. And that means you can actually create animations with the shape itself. And so one of my favorite properties is called the trim path property. So if I go down on my little caret here, and you'll see on a shape property, there's always going to be this button that says add and a play button next to it. If I press that, you're going to see all these other properties come up, which is like, what the heck? Why are there so many things? I'm leaving After Effects and going to bed. But in this case, we know what we're doing. So we're going to add what's called a trim path property. And essentially this is telling the shape, I want this shape to start at one point and end at another point. Really basic kind of concept. So we press trim paths, and this is going to add a trim path here. And you'll see nothing has happened yet because we haven't animated anything inside of that property. So I'm going to just solo that so we're not confused. Okay, we're going to toil down trim path. And what's going to happen here is you're going to have a start, an end property, and an offset. Don't really worry about the offset right now. We're just going to, this might be a little much, but I'm just going to show you guys how I animated this specific box. But if I didn't animate anything and I just started moving this parameter, you can see that like the line is now drawing itself.
Oh,
which is really cool. So you're like, wow, okay. And anytime you take an effect like this, if you want to know what it does before you animate anything, so you don't break stuff, just start playing around with stuff, start moving those parameters and seeing what it does. And so in this case, what I want to do is I want to start at 0. I'm going to go, we're going to go 30 frames, and I'm going to add another keyframe here. And so I'm going to start at 0. And boom, now I have this really cool box that's animated because I started at 0 and I've ended at 100. Okay, so for whatever reason, trim pass property starts and ends, like it says start and end, but it's really not. It's just like one property is in one spot, another property is in another. I've always been a little confused by that, but don't let it stop you from just creating a really cool animation. So if you wanted, like, you could stop there and you don't have to do anything else. But I want to take it one step further. And so what we're going to do is we're going to highlight these keyframes, and I'm going to actually copy them above onto our start parameters. Okay. Because what I want is I want that box to go around and then like disappear. Okay. And so by doing that, I'm going to just drag this a couple frames, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now you'll see it. You'll see that in doing that, I've almost created, like, remember that snake game on Blackberries?
Yeah. It's
exactly like that. Okay. So let's maybe go 1 full frame to give it a little bit more of a box. Okay. Isn't that like so funny? A little Blackberry. If anyone still has a Blackberry, please leave it in the chat because that would just be goals.
I never had a Blackberry. I played Snake on like my little flip phone.
Wow.
Yeah. When it was back when it was like just the like green. I don't know what color was it. It was like a gray screen on cell phones. It had no color.
It was
gray and green.
It was like, gray, green, like weird. I don't know what it was, but it was weird.
Yeah, it was like the original boring graphics.
I know. It doesn't seem all that long ago, though, honestly.
I know. Wait, so in moving your keyframes down a few frames, looks like 5 frames.
Yeah.
That's what's giving it that eating itself look.
Yep. Yeah. So you're basically changing the end property and then the start property at the same time. And essentially what that's doing, and I think maybe this would be a better representation, nothing would happen if I
Oh,
held them over because your start, it's almost like they're opposites. So they're chasing each other. So if I didn't do
gotcha.
any of that, you would just have a full cycle. But what I wanted to do is I wanted it to be like a half cycle and then come catch it and then end. And so the reason it ended here is because that's basically the last keyframe we had. So it's a little confusing, but the trim path property for any number of shape layers, just know that it is really useful in doing this kind of thing. You know, if you wanted to just animate a line from like point A to point B, this is how you would do it.
Awesome. I
All
love
right.
that.
Yeah.
Um, all right. So before we go into the next stuff, I know you want to bring this back into Premiere. We are going to do an artist spotlight today, and we have someone extra special. So I am going to share my screen here. 1 second.
Awesome. I know. I can't wait.
If I can click the right button, that would be great.
Okay.
All right. So our artist spotlight today is for Paco, and he runs the tech for the Adobe streams.
Woo!
You guys have probably seen him in the chat today, and his work is incredible. He's an amazing photographer, and I'm so excited to be able to not only have him in my ear on the stream, but to also be able to feature his work. And he's also a good friend of mine, so this is really great. So let's dive right in. This is my favorite, and it caught my eye immediately when I saw it on Instagram a few weeks ago. I was just like, oh, so beautiful.
It's hard. It's like crazy to look at that because you almost see, it almost looks like one big loop there, but it's like the clouds are just, everything on it is just so beautiful and perfect. And I love the little graphic in the middle too, as that
I
little
know.
extra touch.
I know. It's so awesome. And this has sound too. So definitely go check out his Instagram and listen to the sound on this.
That beach
Love.
is such a beautiful beach. I think it's Marshall Beach, maybe in
Yeah.
San Francisco. Beautiful place. I kind of
Yeah.
like the way it animates because it's almost like a heartbeat. So it's like the heartbeat of San Francisco is the Golden Gate Bridge as it's kind of animating in.
Ah, I love it. I love the colors. I love the way the sunset changes. It's so, so great. Paco, I hope you mint this one because I'm going to buy it.
Oh, that's sick.
I love this one too. I just think it's so cool.
Man, hyperlapses are no joke. And honestly, man, like to have the patience I've done those and they take a long time, but you made this look very elegant. And it seems like there's some really cool effects on there that do smooth it out too and add a little bit of that motion blur, especially around the lights, which I like.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd love to know. Oh, yeah. The art installation at Golden Gate Park. Such a cool place.
Wow.
Paco, I'd love to know kind of like how you did this in the chat, if you're willing to share. And then just some of his photography is just so beautiful and clean and classic. And I mean, you can't beat these places.
Oh, I just love, I don't know, I love how simple, but yet still very beautiful each of his photos are, especially when you're looking at a place like Yosemite. Like the picture speaks for itself. You don't have to do much to it. I love having a subject in the frame like that for some scale of just, how big that sky is and those mountains in the distance makes me want to go back.
I know. Oh, and this one.
I know. I actually like that one and the San Francisco one after that, but that's so beautiful. Looks like the redwoods.
I know. Paco, it's been a while since I have looked at your work. So I'm just like, oh, wait, this one. Oh, was this during the fire? Oh yeah. Wow.
There's so many cool things about that photo, but to me, the biggest thing that stands out is just the compression of everything in that photo. Like, I don't know how you shot it, Paco. Maybe leave us a comment in the chat, but at least on Instagram, it looks like it was definitely with some sort of telephoto to get the compression of the background. And what's that building again? The Salesforce building in San Francisco, or the big one in the back there? He
said shot this as an HDR.
Oh, very cool. Yeah. Oh, Super, super sweet.
Three exposures blended
Three,
in. Exposures.
three explosions.
Oh man, I'm on a good one today.
Technically, it looks like that.
So cool.
Wow.
Oh,
Yeah.
it
Paco,
makes me want to get out west again. Makes me really, really miss California.
Wow, that cloud one is really cool. I love you're clicking on the same ones that I would click on.
Oh my God.
That's sick. So yeah, so that's what a cool use of a mask there.
Wow, that is amazing. I don't know if I ever saw this one.
Where is that? That is a really cool landscape as well. Very Sam Colder-esque there. I like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, Yosemite just like it photographs itself. It's such a beautiful place, and you can drive around that park, which it seems like you totally have, Paco, at any time of the day. I love that location. And the light on I forget, Half Dome's to the left there. And are those the sisters to the right?
I always forget too, but oh my God, remember shooting here? This was such a cool spot in the winter and like the ice and this. I need to go to Yosemite in the summer. It's so cool.
I know.
Paco, we're all blown away by your work. It's so beautiful and underrated.
Wait, can you click on the play button above on someone in the canoe there? I would love to see that. Is that a little, or is that a full video there?
Maybe.
Uh-oh, I broke it.
Uh-oh. Oh, there we go.
I'm always a sucker for some montages.
Yeah.
Sweet. I love that. Very cool.
So great.
Well, I think when you look at Paco's page, like it's clear what you're really passionate about, and landscape photography is definitely it. And you look at that and you're like, oh my God, if I hadn't known of all these places in California, I'd be eager to get out right now. Wow, I know. Where's that?
New Zealand.
Oh my God.
We need to go there.
So jealous.
On the bucket list. Now I'm just like in awe, like scrolling down, like, oh man.
Oh, look at all this. Oh yeah, the sunsets though.
That looks like Glacier.
I think that's Glacier or Banff.
Oh, yeah.
That looks like maybe
Canada.
Yeah. Oh man, Moraine Lake.
Wow.
Very cool stuff.
Everyone go give Paco a follow. Such underrated, beautiful work. I'm absolutely in awe. Paco,
multifaceted guy, man. Multifaceted. Yeah. So yeah, cheers to Paco. Great work. And it's so cool. I mean, I honestly just started following you because Anna's known you for a lot longer than I have now. And I was blown away by your work, and it's really cool to be able to showcase you here.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Look at the lighting there.
I know. Does that looks like Big Sur or Oregon?
Let's see. His hashtags help give it away.
California. I think that looks like Midway Falls. Maybe not.
We'll see. See what he says.
So cool.
Yeah. Thank you, Paco. This is awesome. If you guys know anyone who would be a good person for us to highlight on here, for Adobe to highlight on the spotlight, please submit them so that they can have their portfolio seen and get some more eyes on their work. Thank you, Paco.
Yeah, thanks so much, Paco. Okay. Should we hop back into After Effects?
Yes, let's do it and see how that looks in Premiere.
Cool. All right, sweet. All right, we're going to hop back into After Effects after that inspiring artist spotlight. Gets me inspired to create some cool stuff. So thank you, Paco. Okay, so we're going to try to we're getting pretty close on our final animation, and then we're going to be able to hop in and show you guys how to actually create our motion template here. So here's our cool little snake box, whatever we're calling it. We're going to turn this off so we can actually time it, right? Okay, so we want this to actually animate a lot later because we want to kind of see it wrap the box. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight my keyframes. Boom. And let's just drag this down. Just, personal preference. Ooh, that's cool. So maybe what we want is we want this line to kind of finish right as that box our square box finishes. So we're just going to drag this back a little bit. Cool. Maybe a little bit more. Awesome. Okay. So now that we have our little box, we're going to do the same thing we've been doing for the rest of our keyframes. We're going to copy these keyframes. Okay. And we're going to paste these keyframes to the end of our timeline. And we're going to right click and we're going to go keyframe time reverse. Okay. So I think we want this to probably animate maybe a little bit sooner. Sweet. Let's play around with it a little bit more. Boom, boom. And maybe what I want is I want this. Let's just see here. I am adjusting the offset property because I didn't like that the box just disappeared kind of out here in the corner. So the offset essentially just drags the line and moves it to a place. So let's just move it. Let's just move it somewhere around the top of our box here so it blends a little bit better. All right, so let's play that back. Awesome. And boom. So now it sort of animates out the same area that our box animates out, okay? So let's move on here and try to add a little text and get this puppy working for us. So now you can see, if I press U on my keyboard, remember how you said you were intimidated by all these keyframes? There's a lot in here, but really now that you know the process, all we've really done is create this batch of keyframes, and then these are essentially just copied and reversed. So you're not even really recreating these, you're just recreating the position of where you think they should go. Okay, so we press U again. And what I want to do now is I want to add some text. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click here, go new text. You'll see a cursor pop up here. I'm just going to say title goes here, because, well, that's where it's going to go. All right, we're going to press our selection tool. We're going to move our title here. I'm going to turn snapping off just for a second. Sometimes it can be a pain once you get it placed. And then you'll see right here, this little like anchor point. This you want to make sure is either in the center of your frame here or wherever your animation is going to go. In this case, I just want it in the center. So you hold Y, and then I'm going to drag that down. We're going to turn snapping back on. So now it snaps to the middle. Same thing, go to the align tool. That's all centered. And now it's centered inside of our box there. Okay, so we now have title goes here, but we need to animate this. We need to make this blend with what we have in the box. And like I said before, you want things to look dynamic and feel dynamic and different. You don't want everything to just animate the same way, because visually that just gets kind of boring and no one's going to stick around. And again, we're talking about, you know, these punchy graphics that we want. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the little toil down here. And what's cool about text properties in After Effects is similar to shape properties. There's all these other animated properties that are built into After Effects that your text can do. So what we're going to do is we're going to click animate. And again, oh my God, all these properties, I'm leaving. I'm done. I'm never opening After Effects again. But what we're going to do is we're going to add an animation called position. And I'm going to show you guys how that works. So we're going to click position. And you'll see that what it does is it adds this little animator property and something called a range selector. Okay, and when I toggle down range selector, you're going to see a start and an end. So similar to trim paths, right? Which we just created this box for, and you're going to have a position keyframe here. So this is separate from the position of the entire text. What we want to do is change the position of the words of this text or of the characters, so that essentially we're having the title start below this box and kind of like work its way in, similar to what we did here, which you can see. Right. So yeah, that's how we're going to do this. All right. So let's just add the animation here where we can see it, and then we'll adjust where the keyframes actually go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start my keyframe. We're going to go, let's say 20 frames, and then add another one. And it starts at 0. And you see this little red arrow to the left, or red line. If I move this to 100, you'll notice that now the red line is on the other side of our text. And this is basically just telling After Effects, okay, I want something to happen in the beginning of this text box, and then I want the animation in between to carry the whole length of of the text. So right now on its face, nothing is happening. So we actually have to do something to change that. And so what I'll do is I'm going to go to position here, and I'm going to click my stopwatch, and I'm going to create a position that goes from here below our text box. Okay. And then we're going to do the same thing, go here. And now our position has gone from this point to this point. Okay. So now like you just have all these characters kind of floating into your box. You're like, okay, that's kind of cool, but it doesn't really look that great yet. So what we're going to do is you're going to go to the advanced property. And this is when it gets a little confusing. There's a lot of properties inside of After Effects that scare you, but all we're going to change here is right now, this is saying that this animation is based on characters. So what it's doing is it's animating every individual character rather than the words. And what we want is we want the words to be animated. So we're going to go based on words. So now what it's going to do is it's just going to animate the words instead of the characters. So all we had to do is adjust 2 properties to get there, and we didn't have to animate each individual word. Okay. But I still don't love it. Just like kind of comes in really, I don't know, really hard. It doesn't look great. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the keyframes the same way that we've been doing. And to do that, we're going to highlight our keyframes, Command E. So now it's a lot easier when it actually comes into the text box. Okay. So if I don't change anything else, let's just say we want to leave it like this. Right now, you can still see that we don't want the title here. We want it to appear so it looks like it's coming out of this box here. And so similar to what we did with our footage earlier, our media, we're going to add a mask around this. So I'm going to press U on my keyboard, give myself a break, and then I'm going to press just the title U. Make sure that I'm highlighted on the title, and I'm going to double click the mask tool, okay, like I did before. And now what we've done is we've created a mask around the title. And so this is a huge mask. We don't need it to be that big, but all we need it to do is basically mask the word away so that it looks like it's appearing inside of this box. And so to do that, we just hold Shift Command and we just move this over, okay? And we're going to, let's zoom in a little bit so we can get a little bit more specific on this. We're just going to move it right to the edge. Whoops. And you can change the mask color so that like it doesn't blend in. So if I wanted this to be purple so I can actually see what I'm doing, I could do that. Although that's probably not a good color because this is like kind of the same. So Shift. Whoops. There we go. Okay, now if I play this back, you'll see that the text has animated out of the box because we've added a mask around where we don't want to see it. So all you Photoshop experts and anyone in any other program knows how masks works. It's the exact same way in After Effects. There's just, more properties included. Okay, so let's see where we should time this text. So I kind of want the text to come in right around here. Again, like the tip before, we always want something to be moving in creating our animations. So I'm going to highlight these keyframes. We're going to drag them down. Boom. And now I like that the title goes here. I actually think it comes in a little fast. So what I'm going to do is just drag these out a little and then move this down a hair. Again, it's all preference. It's all just kind of based on what you like. Boom. And I am actually noticing that right now, because it's coming in a little before this box, you're seeing some of the white. So I'm just going to move this down until you don't see that. And that's pretty good right there. Cool. So that's what our text is looking like. Title goes here. If I want to take this one step further, I'm going to highlight these parameters. I'm going to go back into my graph editor. Oops. There we go, graph editor. And I'm going to just adjust these properties so that it comes in a little bit quicker. Okay. I don't like that. I liked what it was before. That's way too much. Let's try the other way. Again, this is just trial and error.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. So we'll leave it maybe as like something like this. Okay. And now there's your text. Okay, looks pretty cool. Let's drag this down a little bit, and we're going to do the exact same thing. We highlight these keyframes. We're going to try to paste this. So let's say we want this to go out around here. We want our text to leave. Oops. Paste. But obviously, we're still getting the same animation because they are not. Oops. Let me just do this again here. Let's just go one by one. So let me take the position first. Copy that to our position, right click, reverse those keyframes, and then the start, same thing, highlight, copy, paste, reverse these keyframes. And now we have the outro of what we want. And I think the text should leave a little bit sooner. All right. Okay. So that is looking really good, guys. We have a really awesome dynamic animation happening for us. It's only taken us the entire stream to do it. But
looking great though.
I think it's looking really cool, you know, and I'm going to take it one step further here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to actually create our motion graphic template using the Essential Graphics tab. And that's an important piece of this as well. So now let's say we're finished with this. Okay. We feel like this is a really good place to templatize our animations. What we were going over yesterday in Premiere, and I'm going to just pop back into Premiere for a sec and go over to our Essential Graphics window. You can see that we have this global controls setting, right? And I went over this yesterday, but essentially the global controls everything. And then inside of these groups, you have all of the controls for those specific assets. And so to start that in After Effects, what you're going to want to do, and I'm sure there's a couple ways to do this, is you're going to want to create basically a control layer. And that's essentially a layer that controls everything beneath it, kind of like an adjustment layer. But you do that by right clicking here. You're going to go new, and we're going to actually make this a shape layer because a shape layer is empty until something is actually put in it. So it's essentially an adjustment layer just with more properties. Okay, and I'm going to press enter on my keyboard, and we're going to call this control layer, not color, control layer. Okay, and this right now isn't controlling anything because we haven't told any of these layers that we want it to. And so this little, it's called a pick whip, but it looks like almost some sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Like you're in like a daze or something, or
like a little curly eye.
Yeah.
Like where you're like,
yes, there's a name for it and I can't think of it. But essentially what this does is it tells these layers, parent this layer to this layer. So anything that this layer does, I also want it to affect this layer. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to parent all these to the control layer. Okay, so if I parent these, you're going to now see that in the parent property, it's telling me that this title is parented to the control layer and so on and so on. So I'm going to just do that with each of these layers real quick so that everything is parented. And again, the reason I'm doing this is so that when I go into Premiere and I save this as a motion graphic, I do have a control layer that I can change the size or the opacity of the entire animation rather than have to, do it manually. Okay, so if I go in here, there's no properties to this right now because we haven't animated anything. But if I move the scale, you'll notice that now, if I just adjust the scale, it's adjusting the scale of everything, right? If I were to remove this, it would adjust the scale of everything but this text here. Okay, and the text would just stay. And so that's how you can see a representation of, it's basically just a puppet for you, and it acts that way in After Effects. Okay.
So the chat is talking about doing a null layer.
You can do that. Yep, you can do. There's a number of ways you can do it. You can do either a null layer, null object, which is essentially just an empty layer. You can pre-compose everything and do it that way. So I'm essentially doing the exact same thing, just with a shape layer instead of a null object.
Gotcha.
So null is here, and they're essentially the same. I just like having a lot of shape properties instead of limiting myself to like a solid. Okay, so let's start to actually create our template here, because now that we have a control layer and we have everything parented to it, we can start the process. So to do that, we're going to go to Window, Essentials Graphics. Okay, and you're going to see, I already did it, guys. But for the sake of doing this again, I'm going to actually delete it all.
Sad.
Don't judge me. I'm not even going to look. That hurt me. That took me a while, but we're going to do it right here live. Okay. So basically what this is we're going to do everything that we were doing yesterday in Premiere, but we're going to be on the side of creating it and then naming things so that when we go into Premiere, we could take this template and, replace media and do whatever we want with it. So the first thing I want to do is I want to actually add the media that I want to replace. So to do that, I'm literally just going to drag and drop my clips here. So I'm going to drag the first clip, boop. Unreal, okay. Don't worry about that. I'm not sure why I did that, but we're going to add another one. Will not affect rendering. And we're going to add another one. This might just be because I've already created this, but you wouldn't really get that warning ever. So I wouldn't worry about that. Okay. And this is now our media. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a little group. So we're going to go add group. We're going to say media replacement. Oop. All right. And what we're going to do is we're going to drag these into our folder just so we can stay nice and organized. And if I drop these down, you'll see that this is where we're going to actually be setting the image, the thumbnail of the image, so that when we go into Premiere, you would see that thumbnail and we can easily drop and, replace whatever media we want. And inside of each of these properties, what we can do is we can say, okay, I want to be able to replace this media, but I also want to be able to change its size if I want and change the position because maybe I'm not seeing those mountains in another clip and I want to make sure that I can move it so that it fits. So to do that, we're going to press P on our keyboard and we're just going to drag the position property into the actual position here into our cloudy sky here. So position, oops. So the thing about keyframes is they actually will not, the properties are going to be set, but they won't be, keyframeable inside of Premiere, which is totally fine. Okay. So let's just drag this position down here, make sure it's under our cloudy sky. All right, perfect. And let's do the same thing for our campfire. Hate that I'm getting these errors.
So the chat is saying, if the controls are red like that, it means that you need to change the primary comp.
Change the primary comp. Okay, let me try something else here.
Or primary property.
Primary property. Title card. I wonder, oh, is this different? Oh, I know why. Oh, duh. Forgot about that part. Okay, so yeah, so here's where you would name your, thank you for whoever mentioned that in the chat. So here's how you would name your Mogurt, your motion graphics. So we're just gonna call this title card for Adobe Live. And then primary right now it's red because it was set to the one that I was working on this morning, which is title card version 1, but we're going to change it to title card for live. And that's the composition that it's going to be pulling from. So now it's a blank slate and everything is created. So I'm just going to title this again because it went away. Title card for Adobe Live. Okay. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. So let's just start by dragging our footage. There's one. Yep. Perfect. No more red. Thank you. And this is our footage. Okay, so let's just start there. We'll add the properties later. We're going to make sure we add this group. We're going to call this media replacement because this is the media we're going to replace if we want. Okay. And let's close that. Okay, the next thing we want to do is let's say we want to add the text. We want to be able to go in and actually change the text, change the font, change the color, change all of those things. So what we're going to do is we're going to go here to our title, and a really cool feature in this Essential Graphics tab is that if you click Solo Supported Properties, what it'll do is it'll automatically show you all of the properties that After Effects supports as a Mogurt. So if I press Solo Supported, what it's going to do is you can see all of these properties are actually supported by Essential Graphics. So I could just drag a number of these things into this window. And then when I save it as a template, I can go into After Effects and adjust those properties. But for this case, all we want is the source text. We just want to change the text. We want to change the font. So all I'm going to do is drag the source text in here. And then you'll notice that, okay, here's our source text. Here's where the title would go. So I'm just going to leave it. Title goes here. We can change what we want. And then I'm going to go edit properties. And I'm going to go enable custom font selection, enable the file size, and enable some faux styles. And I'm going to press OK. And now when we're actually in Premiere, all of these properties are going to be interchangeable, and we can do whatever we want with it, even though we've created this template here. Okay. So I'm going to add another group, keep ourselves organized here. We're going to say text. All right. We're going to drag our source text into text. So now we have our media replacement and we have our text so far. Okay. So now let's say I want to adjust the position of the text, right? Or I want to adjust the opacity of the text. What I'm going to do is go to these transform properties, and I'm going to now just drag just the transform properties from that text. So let's say I want to change the scale of it in Premiere. I'm going to drag scale. I'm also going to drag position, so I can change the X and the Y. Let's say we adjust the font and the size changes. We want to be able to still move that, but not have to go back and reanimate our entire template. So that's important. And let's just leave it at that. Opacity is fine. Okay, so let's make sure we drag these to our text folder. So everything is in there. All right, source text, position, scale. Great. Now what we're gonna do is, let's say we want to change the color of this text box, right? Like we want to be able to give an editor as much flexibility and freedom if they have different styles than we do in different style guides. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the text box shape. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, solo supported properties. Look in text box shape, wherever that may be. Come on. All right, and we're going to go to the rectangle path, okay, and we're going to go to size. And what we're going to do is drag size. We're just going to go rectangle size. Let's change maybe the position. Rectangle position. And the cool thing about this too is you can actually add a comment. So if I wanted to add a comment under this that, was to an editor that didn't know what they were doing, or you wanted to make sure that they didn't mess up some sort of logo, you could say like, don't do anything with this logo or else you're never editing again, something like that. So we'll just go position, and let's say we want to change the fill, right? We want to change this fill property. So I'm going to go to the color down here. And because I have the stopwatch, that is a supported property. We're going to drag this in here. And so when I'm in Premiere, I can now change that color. I can change the opacity. And let's see, let's change the global positioning and the scale. So we'll just add a couple more properties. Okay. And we're going to add a group, and we're going to name this text shape. All right. And then we're going to drag these guys in here. All about that organization life.
Oh,
all
yeah.
Right. Cool. Okay, so now that we've added all of these parameters, is there anything else that we think we'd want to change? Maybe we want to change the color of the white border. So maybe someone else wants that to be low opacity, or they don't like it. They might be able to take the opacity down. So we're going to take the same thing, text outline, show solo supported properties. And if you know which properties work, you don't have to do this every time. I'm just showing you guys this for the demo here. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take the rectangle path. I'm going to bring in size. We're going to say border size. Let's just change the color of the stroke, right? So there is no fill on this. So we're going to do the stroke color, which currently is white. Okay. And maybe I want to change the stroke width too. Maybe we want that to be thicker. So that'll be kind of cool. And they're going to add another group here. We're going to call this text outline. Okay. Bring those three properties in, and that's pretty good. Those are probably enough parameters to get us started. And let's see if all of our work was for nothing or if this actually works. So let's go to the next step here.
Did it work when you did it this morning?
It did, yeah. So
okay.
The suspense is killing me. All right. Okay, so what you're going to do now is you can set a poster frame. So this basically could be the frame that you see when you're in your essential graphics panel in Premiere. Maybe I want to see something that looks like there's some animation to it. So I'll go to like, I don't know, I like that. So we're going to go set poster frame. Okay, and now you can see up here in the essential graphics tab, it's automatically set that poster frame. And now for the magic, we just go export motion graphics template. Listen to After Effects, save your project always. Okay. And now what it's going to do is it's going to generate that motion graphics and it's going to ask you where to save it. And I always just save it to the local drive. Don't worry about this. This is like timing and different parts of the actual animation. We don't need to worry about that. We're just concerned about all these other properties. So press OK. Okay. And give it a second. And we should now be seeing, yep. So here is our box. You can save it to a drive. You can save it to your libraries if you want. I'm going to save it to the local templates folder because that's already where everything is saved in Premiere. I'm going to press OK. And it's going to do its thing and generate my motion graphics. And that's it, guys. Now we have essentially created exactly what we did yesterday in our own style. And to see our work and to see it in action and to hope that we can replace our media, we're just going to crank open Premiere. And let's just go down the timeline here. We're in our graphics panel already. Okay. We're going to go to our essential graphics and we're going to go to browse. And so I already know I titled this like title for Adobe Stream or something like that. So title, bam. Title card for Adobe Live. This is the one I did earlier this morning. So it's slightly different, but it looks very similar. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drag this onto my timeline. Okay. You're going to load your motion graphics, very similar to what we did yesterday. Let it do its thing. Usually it's pretty quick. And now it'll play back. And on the right side here, you notice that all of our properties, including our media,
snap,
are right here in Premiere for us to play with. So your text, you can now, and you can put anything you want. You can put leave the map, or you can put Adobe Live, whatever you want. You can change your text. You can change the size of your text, and then you can change your position. And remember, these are all properties that we've been conscious of adding in there. If you felt like you didn't want some of those, you didn't have to drag those in. Text shape, let's say we want to change the color. Maybe I'm like, I really am kind of sick of this orange and I'd like to have a variety of different titles. I could go into my libraries over here, use my color picker, and I want that to be my color. Ooh, that's cool. Or I want this to be my color. Now, rather than going into After Effects every time, I can just do this all in Premiere once I've created it once. I can take the opacity down, which I actually meant to do, but let's say we want that to be 80%. We want to see a little bit of the background. The text outline right now is, for some reason, not there. Oh, it is there. Let's see. Yes, it is. We were just not rendered. So the outline is there. If we wanted to change the color of the outline, where are you? Where are you, little outline?
It's hiding.
It disappears.
Snake in the grass is hiding.
Yeah. Snake in the grass. Let's say we want to change the color. We don't like the white. So we can come in here, do the exact same thing, take our color picker tool, and we can change that to a different color. You can see that now it's a blue. I like the white personally. And let's see what else we can change. Now what we can do is maybe we want to replace some media. Maybe we're thinking, okay, the fire is really cool, but I'm not really loving that time lapse on the end. I want to change it and swap it out with something of the two of us, or whatever your project might lend itself to. So what we're going to do is find a clip that we like. And like we did yesterday, let's see. Let's take something.
I'm curious to see what you choose. Everyone's super stoked on that.
Cool.
Everyone's excited that it worked. Voodoo Val says it's going to be a game changer. So very, very true.
It really will. It's definitely going to be a game changer. It's helped my workflow quite a bit. I can tell you that it just makes things a lot easier for everybody. And ooh, that's kind of cool. Let's just we're just going to play around real quick and see what we can come up with. This might not be the best way to do this because, like I said yesterday, this is a finished project. So rather than one clip, it's going to look probably a little crowded with 3 clips going in and out. But let's just see. We'll test it. That's the beauty of Mogerts. So we'll drag this in. Bam.
Wow.
Let's see if it plays back. Wow.
Sweet.
Super cool. And that's actually really cool and dynamic because now you have a chance to have, like 3 or 4 clips in one of those animations rather than just one, which is really cool. I like that a lot. You can adjust some of these parameters here, the X and Y parameters. If we wanted to add, more capabilities inside of After Effects, we could go back and we could, let's say on each of these, we wanted to be able to adjust the opacity or something of this. All we would have to do is come down here, drag the opacity in. And now if we resave this, you could change the opacity of that clip. Or if we wanted to adjust the rotation, you could take that rotation tool and do the same thing. So it's kind of endless on what you as the creator feel like you want to set up. I think the best part about it is that it just creates the workflow between, Premiere and After Effects that much better. And for people who are, really into editing in Premiere, like myself, you never have to leave once you've created something like we did today.
Yeah, it's so great. It's so cool that you can create your own.
I know, it's sort of awesome. I've been really playing around with this since the media replacement tool launched, and I know it was in beta for quite a while. And that was the one thing in Mogerts that really was maybe lacking a little bit. And now it just, you have the option to do so much more and change so many things. So let's say, yeah, you can change all of these properties. You can change position, you can change scale. It allows the user to, like here we have the text shape. So we brought in the size and the position properties, the opacity. So maybe you get this template and you don't really like that it's in the center of the frame. Okay, well, let's maybe move our position of the rectangle down. So maybe we'll move it down here. So it's more of like a lower third, or maybe let's move it actually like it's a lower third. Okay. Maybe we'll make it a little bigger. And so to do that, we'll just move the text down. Where are we at here? And I'm just playing with this at this point because it is fun to see, what works. Let's say this is a lower third. Now you have something that's pretty big, but if it was, my name, like a standard lower third, and I changed the size of this and made this a lot smaller, I could then come in here and adjust the size of my shape and the position.
Oh yeah.
So I'm doing all of this. And the nice thing about this is the animation stays the same. So your animations are the same, but their positions are different. So you don't have to like fuss with going into After Effects and reanimating an entire thing for a lower third. You can just change those properties right here in Premiere. And that is such a huge, huge time saver. So we actually probably want to bring down our little box here. Let's take our text outline. And so what we did here is if we moved this, we'd have to go back into After Effects and add some more parameters to the text outline, because right now the only parameters we gave it were the size and the stroke width or the color. So if I actually change the stroke width, it would be thicker, which we don't really want. Or let's say we wanted to go like 20%. Now we have a thicker stroke width. But if we wanted to go back in and change the, these parameters, the way we would do that is go back into our text outline, and all we would do is drag in the position keyframe. So we go here, position keyframe. We'll just slap it right under there. Let's maybe throw rotation in there because why not? Okay, and then let's just save this again so that we can see it happening real time. Let's export it. I've just been overwriting it. Sometimes it can get a little confusing if you have a million versions and you don't know which one to use. So let's let this load. Press OK. We're going to save it to the same folder. It's going to say the file already exists. Yes, I want to replace it because I don't want to go through all that hassle again. Okay, and now once that loads and we go back into Premiere, you will see that, let's see if it actually did it the way I wanted it to. Text, border size. That does not look like it worked. Let's actually, we probably have to bring it back in. So let's see. I don't think it's going to dynamically update like that, which would be really cool, but that might be a little much.
It's all a learning process.
Yeah, so text outline, there we go. So now you have all these other properties on this outline. You have your position, so we can move this wherever we'd like. Ideally, this box would stay with our other box. So you might want to leave a comment. If you are creating templates for other editors or something like that, you'd want to maybe leave a comment that like text outline stays with text shape, don't move it elsewhere. Things like that, so that the animation isn't being broken by an editor. It's just being enhanced, and more useful to somebody. You can change rotation. So there's a ton of things you can do with this.
That's so cool. So we have about 10 minutes left, a little less. I don't know if there's any last minute things that you wanted to do. I don't know if you're going to do any exporting on this or just any final touches.
Sure. To be totally honest, I did not think I was going to make it through the entire thing because that was a lot of After Effects packed into a short amount of time.
Yeah.
So let's maybe go back in here. Let's add one little touch, a little extra touch. I kind of wanted to leave this till the end, but we're going to close this panel. I want to add one little thing to our template here and finalize it. So, you might say, okay, this looks great. We don't need to do anything. We don't need to adjust it. But I really liked having some sort of overlay. I have this really cool like old footage overlay or a crinkled paper overlay, something that gives the whole piece a little bit more texture. And so what I'm going to do is I have these in here already. And I tend to collect a lot of different assets that I can use to blend and screen onto footage. So it, whether it's a film burn or a light leak or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this old footage overlay that I have, and I am going to just overlay this on top of our, on top of the footage here. So we're going to bring this in, and oh boy, it went away. We don't have anything left. What's happened? Don't worry. We're going to screen that. So we're going to take our audio off, and we're going to toggle our mode switches a little bit. First, let's make sure that we parent this to our control layer. And remember, the control layer is that global control. We're going to add that last as one final touch. So we want to make sure that that would also be controlled. Let's toggle this on and off. Let's change our mode, our blend mode to multiply. To screen, I believe.
I was trying to find that the other day when I was working on my little piece, and I didn't want to call for you, be like, James, come help me. And I couldn't figure out where it was.
Yep. All right. So yeah, it's definitely it's sometimes it's hidden and you're like, what the heck? Like, where is this thing? So yeah, very easy to just switch that on and off. And now what's cool is we have this really sweet little like film overlay that I like a lot. I don't love how present it is. It takes away from everything else. So I'm going to press T and take the opacity down to, let's say, like 30%, just so it's subtle and it's there. Okay. And that looks really cool. Gives it something unique and different and blends everything a lot better. Okay. So let's say that we're finished with that. We're going to go back into our essential graphics. Boom, 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 boom. And the one thing that I didn't do is our global adjustment layer here. And that's what this control layer is all about. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a group. We're going to call this global changes. Oops, global changes. Learn to type, James. And we're going to go to, let's say, scale. Maybe we want to take the scale and make that a global change. We want to take the position, and let's say we want to take the opacity. Let's just throw it all in there, and rotation. Okay, and now what these are going to do, we're going to put this into our global change folder. Boom, boom. I'm just leaving them as is. If you wanted to type something in here, like change opacity, you could just put whatever you feel like you want or whatever an editor wants. Okay. So global changes, I'm going to actually drag and bring this to the top so that if someone opens up this template, they can easily know, okay, I can adjust all these settings first, and then I can go in and adjust all the other things. So let's put scale first. This is doesn't really matter. There's no particular order. I just like seeing it that way. And what else? Let's see. I did add, I think on this, I added a couple more lines. So you can see that these lines.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe we'll just, for the time's sake, we'll just copy and paste those. And I'll show you guys kind of in these last couple minutes how we did that. And then we'll wrap it up here. Cool. So copy that. And let's make sure that these are below our control layer and they're also pinned to our control. Everything needs to be controlled. And Oops, I actually took the wrong one. That's one line. This is the other line. And I mentioned this before, but these lines I just basically created with trim paths. So if I highlighted just those two properties, you'll see the keyframes below. And if I soloed these, they are essentially just animating in and out, like a little, just boop, boop, that's it. And, you know, all these little animations and properties look really kind of simple on their own, but the more that you start stacking them on top of each other, the more they start to come together. So let's turn that off. Again, we got to make sure right now, if we look at our parents, the only line that is without a parent is this line 1. So if we change the controls on everything, let's say we change the scale, that line, as you can see in the middle, isn't going to be changing anywhere. So like you guys said earlier, it's a null object, a shape layer, whatever you want to use, but we want to make sure that that's parented. Okay. And that's looking pretty good. I don't love that these lines are coming over our text. And the reason for that right now is that our text layer is underneath these lines. So we're going to just move this up. We are going to move our lines below our text box so that now our lines live behind the text box and in front of our footage. And because these lines were made on a slightly different comp, they're not totally accurate to where I wanted them to be. So I'm just going to come in and adjust them real quick. Come to line 2. Whoops. Excuse me, line 2, position. And let's just move this over so that we get it kind of where we want. Okay, so that's our final animation, guys. That's our finished look. The one thing I did notice here is this old film. For whatever reason, there's like a little escape button from recording it. So I'm going to go into the scale property and just move that out of the way. Make sure we don't see that. Okay, and now we have our final animation. So I'm feeling like this is good to go. And so let's just make sure we go back in here and we export our motion graphic. Last thing we want to do. Yes, we're going to save that. You guys know the drill now. Okay, let it save. And yes, we're going to replace it. Yep. Boom, boom, boom. Let that load. Once that's loaded, your finished animation would be ready to go in Premiere, which is so cool. Here it is. Oops, title. I believe this is the one. Oops, sorry, title for Adobe Live. Got a little confused here. Here we go. I never set the proper poster frame, but here's our finished animation, and you can just go in here and go crazy and have fun with it and play around with, oh no, that's wrong.
That's okay. We're almost out of time. So
I soloed it, but you get the idea.
Yeah. I think it turned out awesome. And I think this was really great. And so I just want to say thank you to everyone for joining us today. And remember that you can watch this as a replay, so you can go back and review what James did today and as well as yesterday. And don't forget to tune in tomorrow with the Adobe Evangelist, starting with Paul Tranny at 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And once again, thank you for being here with us, and we will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. Goodbye.